Do you see work as a means to an end, something that you have to do instead of something that you want to do? Maybe you even dream of an early retirement so that you don't have to work a day in your life. What if I told you that the very idea of work was not a curse, but was actually designed by God for our good? That work was not a punishment or a necessary evil, but something that we actually need for our flourishing. Hey there, I'm Marcus Paul, and you're listening to Embrace Our Calling, a podcast for Christians pursuing purpose with passion. For those of you who follow our podcast in Season 1, welcome back. Today we're going to kickstart our Season 2 with a 3-part series on the Theology of Work, which is how, as Christians, we understand what work was supposed to be according to the Bible. And we'll dive deep into Timothy Keller's book, Every Good Endeavor, to answer 3 big questions. Number 1 is, why do we need work in order to lead a fulfilling life? Number 2, if work was meant to be good, then why is it so hard? And number 3, how can we overcome the difficulties and find real satisfaction in our work? So today we're going to tackle the first question, and by the end of it, you will see work in a whole new light. So let's talk about work. If you're like most people, you don't usually begin your week looking forward to work. Work is a chore. It is a necessary evil, and it's something that you need to do in order to pay the bills. And many Christians think that, work come into the picture after Adam and Eve messed up in the Garden of Eden, right? It's like it's part of the curse. But you know what? God was working from the very beginning. Before there was any sin, any brokenness, any thorns and thistles, God was working. Think about Genesis chapter 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That is work. The act of creation was God working. And at the end of each day, what did God say? It is good. God was satisfied with his work. So think about that for a moment. God worked before sin entered the world, before anything went wrong. Work isn't a punishment. It is a privilege. It is a partnership with God. So let's talk about God's original design for work. And here's what I love about this. In Genesis, we see God creating. He is working. He is making something beautiful out of nothing. But not only did God put work right at the beginning, he also put Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden to work it and to keep it. Genesis 2 verse 15. And they were partnering with God in caring for his creation. The work was meaningful. It was a creative and collaborative project with God himself. And Timothy Keller writes, the fact that God put work in paradise is startling to us because we so often think of work as a necessary evil or even punishment. And yet we do not see work brought into our human story after the fall of Adam as part of the resulting brokenness and curse. It is part of the blessedness of the garden of God. Now here's where it gets really interesting. When God placed Adam and Eve in the garden, he gave them what we now call the cultural mandate, that is to cultivate and to keep the garden, and by extension, the whole creation. But think about what that means. God actually left creation with deep untapped potential. He could have made everything perfect and complete, but instead, he chose to leave room for human creativity and development. And as Keller puts it, God left creation with deep untapped potential for cultivation that people were to unlock through their labor. To unlock through their labor, that is amazing. God is essentially saying this, that I'm going to create the raw materials and I want you to partner with me in developing this world. So every time you bring order out of chaos, every time you draw out creative potential, every time you take something and make it better than when you found it, you are following God's pattern of cultural development. Whether you're a teacher helping students to learn, a nurse that's caring for patients, or an accountant that was trying to make sure that the numbers add up, you are reflecting God's creative nature. So if you are finding what we have covered so far about work eye-opening, you'll love the book guide on Shortform. Shortform was actually where I get a summary of this book, Every Good Endeavor. Of course, I read the book from cover to cover, but Shortform helped to crystallize the insights from the book to make it applicable to my life. And it also helps me to think through more deeply about some of the issues that was covered in the book. So what is Shortform? Shortform is a powerful book guide app that does more than provide book summaries. It will break down all the key insights from books like Every Good Endeavor and dozens of other transformative titles. So try it for yourself using my affiliate link at shortform.com/EOC, and I'm going to put this in the description below. This will save you 20% off the monthly or annual plan, and it goes a long way to support this channel. More importantly, I found Shortform to be the fastest way to absorb life-changing ideas from books that you don't have time to read from cover to cover. Let's dive right back into it. Now let me tell you something that might surprise you. The Bible doesn't have the same view of work that ancient Greek culture did. The Greeks actually thought that manual labor was something beneath them. They think that only thinking and philosophy really matter in the end. But the Bible actually shows God working with his hands. Jesus himself, the Son of God, was a carpenter. And the Apostle Paul, he made tents. You see, every honest job has dignity. Every role serves God's purposes. In his book, Keller talks about how we tend to divide work into secular and sacred work. Like being a pastor or a missionary is somewhat more important to God than being an accountant or a bus driver. But that is not how God sees it. Listen to this. Work has dignity because it is something that God does and because we do it in God's place as his representatives. So we are made in God's image as workers. And here's where Martin Luther, the reformer, comes in with a really revolutionary idea that changed everything about how we think about calling and work. Back in Luther's time, people thought that only priests and monks had a true calling from God. Everyone else just had jobs. But Luther said, wait a minute, what if every Christian, regardless of their work, has a calling to serve God and others through their work? And this was radical stuff because Luther was basically saying that the baker, the farmer, the merchant, they all had callings from God to serve their community. They are on equal footing with the priests and the monks. So Keller reminds us that work is a major instrument of God's providence. It is how he sustains the human world. So think about that. God is using your work, your everyday, ordinary work, to take care of his people. So when you do your job well, you are literally participating in God's care for the world. So that's incredible when you think about it. Whether you are a software engineer or a security guard, whether you are a CEO or someone stacking shelves at the supermarket, if you are doing honest work that serves others, you are reflecting the image of God. And I love this quote from Dorothy Sayers, which Timothy Keller included in the book. And she says that, often the church approach to someone who come into the church, for example, a carpenter. A carpenter came into the church, and what does the church say to the carpenter? Don't be drunk, be orderly in your leisure hour, and come to church on Sunday. And Dorothy Sayers says this, what the church should be telling him is this, that the very first demand that his religion makes upon him is that he should make good tables. He should make good tables, doing excellent work. Now that is worship in the eyes of God. That is serving God. Let me talk about something else that was also covered in the first part of the book. God didn't just work. He rested. And in doing so, he set a rhythm for us. 6 days of work and 1 day of rest. Work matters, but it is not everything. We need both work and rest. We need the satisfaction of contributing to God's world, and we need the restoration from stepping back and saying that God is in control. When we only live to work, we burn out. And when we never work meaningfully, we feel empty on the inside. But when we get this rhythm right, when we see our work as partnership with God, and that is when we start to experience real fulfillment. So let me close with this thought, that your work, whatever it is, can be a calling when you see it through this lens. You are not just earning a paycheck. You are participating in God's ongoing care for this world. You are using the gifts that he has given to you to serve others. You are bringing a little more order, beauty, or healing to a world that needs it. And that is why we need work to live fulfilling lives. Not because work itself is ultimate, but because through work, we partner with the one who is. Thank you for listening so far. In the next episode, we will tackle the hard question, that if work is so good, then why does it feel so hard? And we'll explore why work sometimes becomes fruitless, pointless, and even destructive. You won't want to miss it. This is Marcus Mok, and you're listening to Embrace Our Calling. And thank you for joining me here today. Be sure to hit subscribe to stay tuned to future episodes. If you want to catch up on the book Every Good Endeavor, do look up Shortform in the affiliate link below so that you can read the key insights from the book. In the meantime, stay joyful and let's go forth to embrace our calling.